The following is intended for mature audiences only.
Welcome to the news from Lalaland. One host is a lady and one is a man. That's right. Hello and welcome to the news from Lalaland. I am the lady aforementioned. We are two siblings and we both have a strange, sheltered past, and this podcast is where we share our story through pop culture, philosophy, and
my favorite part, the
Yes.
creative nonsense.
Yes, Nick is the creative one of the family, as we all know.
Oh, you.
Yeah, so I'm your host. I'm Sarah, as you might know, Sarah Sokol. I'm here with my favorite brother, Nick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and Nick, tell me what you've been up to this week.
Well, I know we're not in the pop culture moment yet, but I watched West Side Story for the first time this week, which obviously is not a 90s thing. That came way before our time, but everybody always talks about West Side Story.
Well, had you experienced the memes at least before?
No, I just, people always joke about dance fighting and snapping and, some of the songs I recognized. But yeah, it was mostly just completely new and kind of incredible. I was not expecting that.
What was your favorite song? You have to tell me more.
The one that blew my mind the most was where they're like, cool. And it's like all the really dissonant, angular, crazy melodies that to my ear, it sounded like they didn't even repeat. It was like just some kind of crazy through composed, dissonant melody. And they're all doing this like crazy dance to it. And it just blew my mind.
It's amazing. It's kind of funny how that one is like such a classic high schooler production. Like that's the one you'll see at all the high schools.
Wait, no. Really?
Yeah, West Side Story. But it's really hard.
If there's a high schooler somewhere that is performing those songs, then I will tip my hat to you or throw my hat at you because it probably sounds awful.
I know. That's what I was going to say. It's like just because they're doing it doesn't mean they're pulling it off.
Well, and another thing that I did recently was I did one of those 23andMe DNA tests.
Oh, this is of general interest because I am related to you by DNA.
Well, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that because there's a lot of reports that you get when you're looking at the DNA, and they actually revealed to me that God, I don't know how to tell you this. I guess I'm just going to tell it to you. You're adopted. My DNA report shows that you're adopted.
How would they have any connection to my DNA?
This is science, Sarah. This is science. And there's more. It goes deeper. I mean, your family, it's turtles all the way down. Literally, I mean, your family, they were turtles. You were adopted from a family of turtles.
Are you telling me that I'm a turtle?
Yes.
My God, it explains so much.
Actually, I made up that story about my 23andMe report because my actual report was incredibly boring. I was waiting to hear they give you all these disclaimers that make you think you're going to get this like super shocking news about, just to warn you, you may receive health information about yourself for an incurable disease, you may learn something that you can't unlearn here that you might regret. And you have to sign a bunch of waivers, and then you go in and it's just like, yep, you're genetically not predisposed to anything in particular. I
mean, what were you hoping? Like, you are the genetic clone of Hitler, I'm sorry.
No, I was expecting, I don't know, maybe that I would find out that I was like Jewish or something, or maybe that I am gonna get early onset Alzheimer's. And my phone decided to alert me the other day, like, you haven't read your weight report on 23andMe. And I said, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what my genetic weight, and like, you are genetically predisposed to be of average weight.
I mean, it's kind of like it seems like in DNA reports, no news is good news, right? It's fine.
Truly, yeah. I always give that. I say that to my patients at the clinic too. I say, well, a boring test is a good test, and I think I actually do disappoint people sometimes who are hoping to find like, oh, it's this one little problem that you have, and this is gonna, as soon as we fix it, it's gonna change everything.
Yeah.
Wow. And here I am talking about work. It is Saturday.
It's allowed. Work is a huge part of all of our lives because we're suckers and we live in a corporate America.
Yeah, just wading through the thick sludge of American corporate greed.
Sucking the dick of the man.
Wade under the heavy ball sack of...
Oh, God. The heavy-breasted ball sack of the man. That's the title of my next slam poem.
The ball sack of the man just lurching its way across the land, crushing all those in sight until it reaches the Atlantic Ocean, where it finally disappears into a roiling sheen of putrid smegma.
Oh, I hate that word so much. Can we move on from this topic?
All right. Well, we should go on. We always do a pop culture moment first because we love talking about pop culture that we know nothing about. And today we're going to talk about games in the pop culture moment.
Pop culture moment.
Yeah.
That's true. I can't help but notice when you said all the things that you've been doing and thinking about lately. Some of it involved ball sacks and smegma, some involved romantic musicals, and some involved your wife, but none involved video games. Why would that be?
Well, because I suck at video games, for one thing.
Do you just have no time in your busy Renaissance man life?
No, actually, I did. I played a video game this afternoon. I played Fortnite, believe it or not, which I started doing with my wife during the pandemic as a way to keep in touch with friends and family at a distance.
Is your wife as good at that game as she is at every game?
She truly is. Yeah, she is just on a whole other level. And the reason for that, well, obviously, if you've been following this podcast so far, you'll know enough about our childhood to know that that we had an extremely sheltered upbringing from which we were excluded from almost all technology. And that definitely included video games.
Did not we have Oregon Trail at one point?
That's not a video game. That's just like a role. Like that game could be easily simulated with a deck of cards with things that happen on them.
That's true. And that wasn't until later as well.
But even then, we had to, when we finally got a computer and it had an Oregon Trail on it, you had to set an egg timer by the computer and turn the timer to 30 minutes, and that was your computer time for the day.
Ah, see, you said no technology? Egg timer.
Egg timers, that's right.
Well, and you got into video games more in your college years as well, right? So, like, can you run us down, like, the Nick's greatest hits of video games?
Well, what happened was I got to college, and when I moved in with another college student and we had, like, a real bachelor pad going on, we decided to get a video game set up, and of course he was already a whiz, and we could have gone out and bought, the latest greatest system that was out, but instead we went to Goodwill and purchased a Nintendo 64 for $10, and because Nintendo 64 was would have been like the hottest thing happening in the 90s when we should have been playing video games. And yeah, the first games that I played were, I think, we had the Mario games, we had Star Fox, and we had Mario Kart. Yeah, mostly like Super Smash Brothers. Oh, no. There was GoldenEye 007.
See, I feel like that kind of covers all the things you could get out of video games. It's like encapsulates, well, not modern ones, but I feel like you need the basic foundation of Mario games to understand all games, right?
Yeah, I was truly terrible at video games when I started out, like in a way that I've never really been able to catch up with, and so I've never really like gotten deeply into a game because people really just get into things that they're good at generally, and without that kind of like foundational like understanding of the logic of games, how they work, and the coordination and just
Coordination is a big one. There are games that, like, older people, not older like our age, older than a teenager, can't play competitively because they're just not, they don't have the speed required to play at the level that competitive people are playing.
Wow,
It's like
that's incredible.
only if you start at 3 years old and go professional by like 10 can you be good in this game.
Wow, that's crazy.
But that definitely was never us. I'm like you, I'm bad at video games, but it didn't stop me from getting really into them. My first big video game experience was World of Warcraft.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I had a friend who got me really into it when I was first living on my own and stuff. But it wasn't until I was almost an adult, pretty much. But I had the same thing where I didn't even know what WASD was or what it signified.
So we were not allowed to play video games. But video games was not the only kind of game we were restricted from. I remember hearing some pretty disparaging comments from our parents when we were younger about Dungeons and Dragons, although I didn't really know what that was at the time.
Yeah, really. I think it must have been just so far outside of my realm that I never really even knew about it at all until I started playing it as an adult again.
Yeah, and you're like a D&D master now, so, you know, how did that come about?
Dungeon Master, yeah.
Sorry.
Well, how it came about is, I would say I still need to get an answer nailed down for you on what your favorite all-time game is, video or otherwise. But for me, it will always be Dungeons and Dragons because from the moment I started, well, I'm a storyteller naturally, and so the idea of being able to hang out with people and do my favorite thing that I like to do alone as well is like the best. But also, I don't know, I feel like it's just a very limitless game, which is something that you can kind of run into probably as an experienced game player, but especially I'm curious if you ran into this when you started playing video games and stuff, where I would just get frustrated as to the why I couldn't do certain things, or like frustrated that the story has to go in one particular direction.
Well, yeah, especially with those old, Mario games and stuff, you're definitely getting like funneled in a particular path.
And I feel like the closest a video game has gotten to being like D&D is probably Breath of the Wild, the Zelda game, which was amazing, very open world, but still you couldn't do anything you wanted, which is what you can do in D&D. It can literally be anything, and even if you're not creative or not a storyteller type, there's still that sort of kid inside you who just has a playground where they can run around without consequence, and it's,
Well, and I think you see, like, I've played D&D with a few people. I feel like I've seen people run into trouble with trying to treat D&D like a regular kind of game. They're looking for the logic of it and trying to follow rules.
Yeah, people who like to win games.
Yeah, what is my player allowed to do, and how do I accomplish this, and what goal am I supposed to be achieving right now? And the thing is, like, you're right, like in D&D, my limited experience, like, it seems like anything really is possible. You may have to jump through hoops to accomplish certain things, just by there are constraints in the world. So, like, you want to accomplish something like really outlandish, like I want to ride a dragon or something. Like, yeah, your DM, you could make that happen for you, but you'd have to go through a lot of hoops to be able to get there. Like, you can't just do anything,
That's true. That's a good point. Which is what makes it feel more real, like alive almost. But yeah. Plus, there is something really magical, I think, about the idea of creating a story, like a whole intricate world with amazing, intricate, unique characters and story that only exists in those moments where you're playing the game together. Like, the rest of my creative experience is creating this book that's going to exist as a fully formed story at the end of it, and it creates this, like, tension and pressure almost. Anyway, I've waxed long enough, I think, about D&D.
Yeah, no, it's cool though. I like I just really love that though, the idea that people are creating the story together. And as the DM, you're coming into the situation kind of with an idea of the direction things might go, but really like the players can take you in a different direction and everybody creates the world and the story together. And that's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
I agree.
And that's just something like, I think one of the reasons our parents didn't like us in video games is they saw them as like a creativity suck. It's something that you get into and you have to do. You're not creating, you're just following someone else's path, following someone else's world.
It's a brain killer. It's like, it makes you go dead in the eyes.
And they were wrong about that. There's plenty of, creativity and ingenuity and even fellowship and camaraderie with other people that comes along with, becoming a good gamer. And I think there's a lot of life lessons that can be learned from video games. But they were also not wrong in the sense that, there are certainly other things you can do that cultivate creative skills that you could never cultivate, playing a video game, that you could doing other things like creating your own stories.
That's true. As with all things in life, it's about balance and boundaries and bears and beets and Battlestar Galactica.
Why do you think Mom and Dad didn't want us to play Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, I mean, you don't think it was as simple as like rejecting Harry Potter because everybody else was kind of?
It might be. It might be just that simple. Yeah.
Like, it's probably something that neither of them ever had any experience with either.
That's a good point. Yeah, if someone and respect in your religious community comes and, says something disparaging about Dungeons and Dragons, like it's witchcraft and there's demons and stuff like that, you wouldn't bother to like look further into it.
Yeah, and it wasn't part of our world, and it wasn't part of their world, so why would they introduce us to it if there's any option?
I will give them some credit here. I mean, if you're a Christian and you really buy into all that, in D&D, you worship different gods. If you're, certain kinds of classes and races will worship different deities.
But the difference is that these gods actually give you superpowers and care about you and answer your prayers and exist. Ooh.
That seems like a fantasy that should be encouraged by the religious. They should be well acquainted with this fantasy.
Yeah, I feel like, long story short, I get why they didn't let us play D&D. From their perspective, I totally understand. And honestly, I'm kind of happy that I discovered it as an adult, because I can imagine myself making you and everyone around me play a lot of really ridiculous stories as a kid.
But think about all those stories that you don't have to be embarrassed about now.
Yeah. But yeah, you're not off the hook. What's your favorite all-time game?
Oh, shoot.
Is it chess? It can be chess.
Man, I don't know. It feels like chess right now because I just got finished watching The Queen's Gambit on Netflix and it kind of rekindled. The thing about chess is that I actually suck at it.
But you've been in the chess world for so long.
I'm going to say not chess. Chess has been it's kind of a romantic thing for me. Since I was really little, I always thought chess was cool. And I've always played with people that were better than me because most people are. And I try really hard. And it's a great mental challenge. And I think I want to get better at it. So maybe that will change. So chess holds kind of a special place in my heart. But really, as far as board games, like Settlers of Catan, I gotta say, we played so much Settlers. We play Settlers sometimes a couple of days a week.
I was gonna say, this is a game that you discovered later in life, because this was not a game that rotated in our household.
No, yeah, but it was just a really fun time in life. There was a couple of years there where we had like a Settlers of Catan board on the wall where you would mark your wins and losses on there. So at the end of the year, we could calculate who won the greatest percentage of games that they played.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. We got really serious about it. And it's really funny too when I go back with all your Sokol clans and play a game. It is always interesting for me to see how little we all care about winning.
That's true.
We're playing Scrabble. Who plays the most interesting word? Yeah, sure, you've got twice as many points than me, but who cares?
Yeah, we are always very congratulate each other genuinely for amazing plays and stuff like that. Where do you think that comes from, that lack of competitiveness?
Well, I think it's just what it's not a lack of competitiveness. It's just I feel like the Sokol way is to kind of march to the beat of a different drum.
Oh,
And
yeah, that's true.
you might be playing, like, if I play a game, the object of the game is to win, but I might have kind of my own personal object, which is like, I will be happiest if I like I was saying, make the most interesting word, or come up with a funny storyline to go along with what we're doing, or say something clever, bantering at the table or something like that. Like, I don't know, like my definition of success is always just slightly different.
Yeah, we would probably be more bored by games that were just the only goal is to win. Like even Settlers of Catan, there's a lot of like mini accomplishments and mini victories throughout it, and smaller.
And a lot of trading. You got to like work with people and make deals and work with people's psychology a little bit. And,
yeah, and fair point that we are competitive, because I like to win. But I think, it's as fun to us pretty much as when we lose, basically. We're talking about Sokols. We're talking about our history. Let's move on. Let's talk about
isn't there like a little jingle we could put right here? Something that's like...
I'll come up with something. Like, Sokolism
of the day.
Sokolism of the day.
We have a little music writing session right here.
That's how it happens. That's how the magic happens.
That's how it happens. That's how the magic happens.
Speaking of magic.
Another game we were not allowed to play.
Oh, no. Magic is a game. The Gathering.
Oh, Pokemon. That was another one. I should have said...
We're past games.
No, the Sokolism of the day is still going to be about games.
Pokemon is a big one, though. We should say that just to loop back, because that was one of the hugest ones of our generation, and we were completely banned from it because it was evil.
I remember as a little kid at a friend's house at a sleepover, he was like, "You guys want to play Pokemon?" And like I'm not allowed to play the game, and then he was like, "We could just pretend to be Pokemon." Okay, and then we just pretended to be Pokemon, and I had no idea what Pokemon were.
I was going to say, how would you do that? I don't think I would know how to do it now.
This is so long ago, I don't remember anything about the game itself. But it must have been a memorable sleepover, because I remember lying on the floor with all the other sleepover attendees, and we were noticing that you could just like think whatever thoughts you wanted to, and weird images would pop into your head. So we were just like, all right, everybody, now imagine a turtle jumping out of a window.
Oh my God. You guys discovered your imaginations together?
Yeah, it was a memorable sleepover.
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh, sharing time is over.
Well, yeah, I mean, you didn't get no fancy sleepovers every night. We had a pretty strict routine that we always followed, which is not a bad thing, especially for children, but Dad was super into routine. He was a very note-taking, habit-forming type of man.
And every day at the Sokol household started with Dad, because he was the first one up. He'd be up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, and he would go down to his little cell, which is that's a common word in the Orthodox Church, the Eastern Orthodox Church. Here I am specifying again.
It's like a monk's cell in a monastery.
Yeah, you go into your cell, and that's just where you perform your monastic duties. And Dad would go down there every morning and do all these prostrations on the floor, light incense, light a candle, say a bunch of prayers, pray for literally everyone he knew.
Yeah, it's like, imagine like a Harry Potter cupboard under the stairs, except it has a coffin in it and an adult man saying many prayers.
And and amongst in the Orthodox Church, we have icons. The walls of any area of prayer will be covered in icons.
Yes, which is really funny because other iterations of Christianity condemn icons.
That's true. They talk about it like it's worshiping graven images. But we don't want to blow past the coffin that you mentioned there. It's kind of like... Oh
yeah, he was a vampire. I don't know how this has never come up in any of our dad stories before, but...
Well, okay, no, who's the guy that said that if there's a gun that shows up in early on in the play that it's gonna have in the
Oh,
first act that it's gonna have to be go off by act 3? Well, if
yep.
you introduce a coffin at the beginning of the Sokolism of the day, someone's going to be in it by the third act.
Yeah, we'll just call that our smoking coffin.
Yeah, so, well, the coffin was there as a reminder of death because remembrance of death was an important part of constantly living in the fear of God
Yes, and death.
and death.
We were not involved in that ritual, although I think a couple of times we might have gone down and kind of been part of it, but most of the time that was Dad's sort of alone time. But
Yeah,
when we got looped in was when we would get woken up at about 6 a.m.
mm-hmm.
And we would all troop down. There's many pictures of us all huddled together looking miserable and droopy on the couch, just covered in blankets, wearing pajamas, and like being read
Hard
the
life.
Bible, basically.
No, yeah, we would do we would get together at 6 and read the Bible reading of the day, which the Orthodox Church had a calendar with prescribed Bible readings. And then there was also a book which called the Prologue, which was a book of translated stories of the lives of saints in the Orthodox tradition. Most of them martyrs. Almost all of them were killed in horrendous ways, which is why we knew so much about torture as kids. But maybe we'll cover that another day. We'll have the torture edition.
That was one of our great games that we made up.
Oh my God. So we would do the 6 o'clock religious readings and eat some oatmeal or something like that. After that, we'd be so tired, we would like lay around on the couch for a while. And then sometime around 8 or 9, we'd start doing schoolwork, which would go until like noon or 1 or something like that.
Well, it kind of depended. Like, it was flexible, but I don't want you to make it sound like we were slacking so much more than public schoolers. Like,
No,
it
I
just
think-
depended how much work we had to do that day.
I think people will understand that now because we're in the middle of the coronavirus pandemic. And a lot of people have been homeschooling this year and realizing that, all the work that their kids were doing at school 8 hours of the day can really can be condensed down to, in some cases, less than a couple of hours of hard studying at home on your own. So it really is, it's a little different, that was focused study time for, 3 or 4 hours a day.
That's true. And you're not losing time, like, walking through the halls and stuff.
Yeah. And so during that time, I mean, and to be fair, it was a lot of self-study, largely, after a certain age when we were able to read and, just go through the textbooks on our own. We had a lot of responsibility for our own education. Not that Mom wasn't there for us, but it kind of allowed us to maybe skim over some of the subjects that we weren't quite as excited about and focus really deeply on things that we cared a lot about, which has definitely pluses and minuses.
That's true. I feel like it was also dictated by Mom's interest in the subjects as well.
Or maybe it's just like, Mom wasn't that crazy about math. I wasn't that crazy about math because I wasn't super good at math. And so it just didn't bother her that much that I didn't make it that far in math. It was like, well, it's fine. He's like great at reading and writing. So
you did the minimum. I think that's what they were all about. They were just like trying to make us well-rounded and cover our bases and make sure that we were as educated as we needed to be to get into college or do whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah, that's true. What do we fill the rest of the day with then? After, if you're done with school by 1 or 2 in the afternoon, you've got a whole day of Sokol shenanigans ahead of us.
Sokol shenanigans. There's got to be a condensed word for that, right? Sokanigans? Shokanigans.
Oh, like a Sokolism?
Right, sorry. A lot of things. Well, we would, my favorite thing to do was read, but I think that doesn't really count as a shenanigan. So the rest of the time that wasn't reading.
Oh, that depends on what you're reading, my dear.
Well, at home I was mainly reading boring stuff, but and we're also doing the same thing with saxophone. It was basically a lot of working on stuff or reading stuff. But when we weren't doing that, we did like to make a lot of arts and crafts. We were both very artistic. We had a whole basement room that was basically just our room to hang out, and you actually painted a whole big Moria door. Mines
Yeah,
of
the Gates
Moria
of
door.
Moria. It's not painted, actually. It was drawn with a Sharpie.
Yeah, that's right. A Sharpie on the basement wall.
There's a giant dragon drawn by somebody on the opposite wall.
Yeah, one of our friends who visited when we were younger drew a dragon on there. It was just like a really cool big space where we could just create.
Yeah, it was like a barely finished basement. I mean, the house wasn't super fancy down there. Like, it was kind of a concrete wall.
Oh yeah,
Just
there was a really
barely
scary
painted.
bathroom as well. That was like
Yeah, lots of
just like a
spiders and dust
toilet.
and
It was like a single toilet on a throne, and it had a curtain drawn across. Anyway,
and these like high barred windows up there.
yeah. But we were
But
doing
it was our space,
pastels.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were doing. What are some of the like? What did you get into artsy wise? I feel like it was mainly pastels and calligraphy.
Also, and then drawing. You do these cool things called secret cities that I got into for a while, where you draw all these buildings and roads and windy, like design some kind of like crazy fantasy city on an 11 by 8 piece of paper, and then you add to it. You make everything go off, and then you tape two pieces of paper together, and you'd end up with 7 or 8 papers taped together with this long, sprawling cityscape.
Sounds awesome.
Just doodling. That's, a lot of drawing.
I should do that now.
Yeah, secret cities, man. That's where it's at.
I think my version of that was embroidery. It took a lot of concentration and stuff more than creating the art. But yeah, we actually got like art lessons as well. Mom and Dad were very into the arts. They really liked how creative we were.
Yeah, we do. Sometimes we'd sit and listen to an audiobook.
Yeah, mainly the Redwall audiobooks.
Yeah, and Narnia.
Yeah, Great Expectations.
And then so we would, I did a lot of weird kitchen experiments too. I had a friend and I, who when we were really little, would write recipes, which I think Mom still has. And for things like amazing concoctions like Sprinkles Delicious.
Did you write down the recipe for Sprinkles Delicious?
Yeah, I'll tell you that it involves a lot of peanut butter and syrup and honey and marshmallows and sprinkles.
I was going to say there better be sprinkles in there.
Yeah. It's just a mash of like fat sugar.
Sounds great.
Brilliant. I mean, yeah, that's like the recipe for success for any all candy, right?
Yeah, it could have been just like a good spread for toast or something, but I think we would just like eat it spoonfuls. Yeah, that was kind of rare though, because we did always end up making, I think one time we actually were making a real effort to invent a recipe, and we ended up baking it, and it didn't bake properly because baking is science, and we didn't do it right. And so it was like rubber, basically, like a banana rubber bread.
I remember that actually now.
Yeah.
I had forgotten until now that we actually did try to bake real things, and we had all kinds of recipes in the house, which we knew how to follow, but we're like, no, we're going to make our own version of bread. And we're just going to like put as much flour and water as we think there should be.
Yeah, just pointless, man.
Well, I'm glad Mom let us do that, though. I don't think I'm that cool with my kids. I don't think I'd let them do that. I'd be like, you're not going to waste half a pound of flour on reinventing bread.
Yeah, well, that's why it was kind of rare, I think. But also, your kids aren't actually that old yet. I mean, you may let them get into the pantries at some point.
Yeah, it may be hard to resist if they show an eagerness to do this.
But like that was just you and I. We always had kind of our own little Nick and Sarah club. But what about all the Sokols together as a family? We did invent games as well.
We did. Yeah, and some games that are still played at Sokol gatherings today.
Yeah, I think my favorite one...
Wait, should we give these away? I mean, someone's going to take this and make a bunch of money marketing.
Is dictionary. What you need for this one, future marketers, is a dictionary.
No, actually, with some of these games, now that I mention it, I think I have encountered other games that are really similar. Like the only difference is that they have cards that go with it instead of a dictionary and a board a point scoring system that moves
Right.
you across a board. But it's literally the same game
They've
that we played just
introduced
for fun.
limitations.
And winning.
Yeah, the original dictionary game is. I mean, it sounds like people have already done this, so we could just give it away.
No, I was kidding about that.
Yeah, we were thinking. I don't even know how it started, but we always did this. We would look up words that we didn't understand from holy books and stuff as kids, but then Dad would have us guess what it meant, or Mom would have us guess what it meant before they told us the real answer, and then that just kind of expanded into a game where one person would pick a word and tell everybody the word and how to spell it, and it had to be a word nobody had ever heard of before, and then everybody would write their own definitions down of either what they thought it meant or what they thought most people would pick that it meant, or what they thought was the real definition.
Well, and someone had to write down the real definition too.
Right, the person who picked the word would write down the real definition.
Yeah, and then you get points for if you guessed someone's answer.
Yeah, exactly. And points for getting the most people to guess you as well. And yeah, like you said, I'm sure that this game exists, but our version of it was very fun and we just came up with it. We're just geniuses.
Of all the Sokol games, I think that's the one that is most like a real game. Like there's another one called Pass Around, which is it's not really even a game. It's just someone writes down an adjective and then on a piece of paper, everybody has a piece of paper. You write an adjective down on it and you pass it to your right. The next person writes another adjective on it, pass it to the right again, and then you put a noun on there. So you end up with like a fluffy, embarrassed cheese grater or something like that. And then you pass it to the right again, and the next person has to draw do their best to draw a picture of whatever it is.
Yeah, there are some iterations that are kind of similar-ish, where you're drawing things and then writing down what you think it is, and then the next person draws it, like visual telephone and stuff. But yeah, coming up with the three adjectives, or the two adjectives and the noun, it's created some hilarious artwork. My favorite round is when everyone did a bird. Like everyone
I forgot about
the noun was a bird for every single one. So it was just a lot of different types of birds.
A gruesome flustered bird or something like that. And everybody said, no more birds. And then people would still, This is getting into areas of probably very specific interest here, but...
Well, speaking of specific interest, I mean, let's reach it out to the audience. Just like, I mean, I'm sure that you guys have invented your own games out there, and you have family games that you've always played together as like a tradition or something. Yes. So let us know what they are, and if they're good, we might try them and give you a review on the podcast.
And if they're really good, we'll probably pitch it to Procter & Gamble and make away with millions of dollars.
Yeah, well, as we all know, Procter & Gamble are listening.
What's up, Proc G?
Hello, and tune in next time for breaking news on some new games.
No. The only person listening to this podcast, I think we established before, is Chris Thiele. Hi, Chris.
All right. Hi, Chris. It's so good to hear you again.
What's that? Oh, there's not enough mandolin in this podcast. You think there should be more mandolin? Chris, nobody does mandolin like you. I just happen to have a mandolin right here.
Wait, you probably do, though, have a mandolin.
Yeah, that was a bad joke because I'm staring across the room at a mandolin, but I'm stuck here behind this microphone, and I think that will have to wait for another time. Sorry, Chris.
Right,
so, Chris, this will give you a reason to tune back in and keep listening next week.
Yeah.
There might be mandolin in the next one.
Although, maybe you could seize it and then improvise a little doodle that leads up to the pointless conjecture.
Okay, fine.
We twisted his nipple and he's gonna do it, Chris. He's doing it for you, buddy. Disclaimer, no nipples have been twisted in the making of this podcast.
All right, I'm going to improvise a fiddle tune for you now. called The Twisted Nipple.
Oh, no!
Oh, Chris is crying. He loved it.
That's right. Get out there and twist those nipples, folks, as we head into the final section of today's podcast, Pointless Conjecture. Pointless Conjecture!
Well, dear sister, what would you like me to pointlessly conjecture about?
Yes. Today I'm going first. And I promise you I had this question picked out before our previous discussion. But are you familiar with Wizard's Chess?
No.
You say you've read all the Harry Potter books?
Wait, Wizard's Chess? Remind
You
me.
fucking liar.
I have read Harry Potter. I remember that there was a thing called Wizard's Chess. I don't remember anything else about it.
So it's basically like regular chess, except the pieces smash each other when you capture them. So instead of capturing, you smash.
Doesn't that seem like kind of a cheap way to invent a new game for a fantasy novel?
That's how it
It's
is, though.
wizard
There's
chess.
the knights and the pawns and everything are still, they move all the same way. I don't know.
It's like, this is the same as normal chess, but the pieces move by themselves.
And never play it against a Wookiee or they'll rip your arm off.
Yeah.
It's
Now,
all
see, that was that. If you called that, if Wizard Chess was something like that, I'd be more. That's more creative.
Yeah, they should have put Wookiees in it. But anyway, my question is, if you had to be a piece in a game of Wizard's Chess, where you die if your piece gets killed, basically, what piece would you choose to be?
Oh, the king.
But the king is inevitably, if the game is won, will die by the opponent.
No, because the king is always threatened with death, and he surrenders. He doesn't actually get killed in chess.
In Wizard's Chess, if you lose, you die.
Oh, I should have read a little bit more closely Harry Potter. I didn't
No,
realize
it's
that my
like-
eventual life might be at stake here.
Well, I was just thinking that the king would seem like the obvious answer, but obviously, if you carry it through to the end, the king dies every time, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, if in fact a surrender of the king, like a checkmate, was synonymous with the king being killed in Wizard Chess, if that's true, then yeah, the king. You got a 50% chance of death every time you play as the king. So if that's the case, then of course I think I'm going to want to embody the one of the pawns on the outside edges, like the far right or the far left of the board.
You want to be a disposable guy?
Yeah, I'm gonna be disposable, but on the edge, because those are the ones that don't get played. The pawns get played out in the middle first usually, and they're sort of the front line. And those other pawns don't really come into the game a lot of times until the end, just to kind of help out with checkmate or stand in the way of something. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, it doesn't suit your personality, but it suits your desire to live.
Maybe I'm thinking about this question all wrong.
No, that's how I was originally thinking about it. It was like, which would the piece be that would be most likely to live in
I think,
chess?
yeah. If what chess piece would I rather be? Well, of course, I mean, a knight would be super cool. You can go up in cool L shapes and jump over people, and that fits my personality.
You do love L shapes and jumping over people.
Free jazz.
The whole time he's just scatting.
That's how I imagine the knights jumping over the other piece. Jumping over the other pieces, just woo! Yeah. But those knights are going to get killed every time. Knights come
Yeah,
out
you're
first of the non-pawn pieces, and they definitely are expendable.
Yeah, and the queen's powerful, but too big a target. Too
Yeah.
big a target.
Who wants to live with that kind of responsibility and pressure on them?
I mean, somebody must, because they run for the presidency every 4 years.
Well, my lack of desire to be the queen probably says something about my lack of political ambition. I don't even want to ever become a business owner. Like, nothing has ever horrified me more than the idea of owning my own business or being in charge of a lot of people. I guess when I say that, I'm thinking of like something that involves a bunch of employees or a store or,
Right.
something like that. Yeah.
Heavy commercialism sagging under the ball sack of the man.
Yeah, just getting rolled under the crushing weight
Jeez.
of the scrotum of the man.
It's back. It's
Before I start waxing poetic here, maybe we should move.
Yeah.
I'll make you
save us from
pointlessly.
ourselves with the next question.
Yeah. Well, Red, I know this is pointless conjecture, but I think I'm going to ask you a series of questions that are notably pointed.
Oh, no.
Well, we've been talking about D&D today. Mine's also game related, because we're talking about D&D, and I know you've spent a lot of time creating fantasy kingdoms. And with your vast knowledge of kingdoms and fantasy kingdoms, I thought I would test your knowledge of the animal kingdom with a... Don't laugh, this is serious.
Sorry.
I thought I would test your knowledge of the animal kingdom with a series of questions that you can show, how much you learned as a homeschooled kid about nature.
Okay, it's like a biology test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a normal, like, regular biology test that any homeschooled kid would have to know the answers to.
Right. Are you smarter than a homeschooler?
Yeah. And so you can answer any correct answer that you can think of. Like it could be 2 or 3 or Africa or perhaps a turtle. Depending on what the question is, those are some ideas of answers that might be.
It's not going to be like multiple choice or something.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right. So what is the average wingspan of a malachite butterfly?
3 girth units.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that?
Absolutely.
Because I could have sworn it was 7.1 to 8.4 centimeters.
I don't even know what a centimeter is. Butterfly wings are measured in girth units.
Damn it. Fine. Okay, moving on. What is the mating season of a mallard duck?
It's December of 1742. Their time is past.
That was the age of the mallard duck back then?
That's when all the mating was done, and it's finished now.
Wow, that's not the answer we were expecting. That's not the answer I was expecting to this question. Fine, moving on. In what family classification does the black-footed ferret belong?
The triumvirate.
The triumvirate fam. Thank you. What does the diet of a Sumatran orangutan consist of?
Human.
Just entirely human. I think that's definitely not the right answer. They eat primarily fruit, including lychees, figs, and mangoes. But at the rate that humans are deforesting orangutan habitat, they're going to have to start eating humans. And when that day comes, will we be ready for it?
Is anyone? I live in a deforested area. I am not telling you some hypothetical future like the theory of gravity or the theory of evolution. No, this is a fact.
Like a reality of you live every day in fear of getting eaten by an orangutan?
No, I live every day getting eaten by an orangutan.
What is the migrational pattern of an Arctic tern?
Left.
That's true, actually. We would say latitudinal, but yeah, left would also be one of those. Were you facing the right direction, left could be the right answer.
Exactly.
I'm gonna believe that one, but
really,
so
it's
then
like all about perspective with the terns.
Yeah, because no matter which way you turn, it's gonna be a different answer.
Now he's thinking with his throbbing ball sack.
Well, if you know the answer to that one, then you're definitely going to know what is the weight of a newborn grizzly bear cub?
It's at least the weight of 7 newborn human babies.
Okay, so what does that come out to in like...
It's like 700 parsecs.
Thank you. 700 parsecs.
Yeah, about 700 parsecs. It's like
That is a heavy
12
fucking baby.
It's like 12 teen less than the Millennium Falcon weighed.
And 12 teen less than, you mean 12 teen less than how fast the Millennium Falcon could complete the Kessel Run?
No, a parsec is a unit of weight.
Oh man, I thought it was a unit of space time.
No.
Well, I'm in way over my head here, but just educate me here now. Educate me. Where in the world would you be most likely to find a Hellophorus beetle?
Inside the vaginal recesses of Carmen Sandiego.
Oh, okay. Okay. So in which part is the vaginal recess?
It's just like any of the creases.
Now, do
in there.
people who don't have Hellophorus beetles embedded in them have vaginal recesses, or is that something that's created by and for the Hellophorus beetle?
She created a home for them herself some time ago. And that's why she's always hiding. The triumvirate is always on the hunt for these beetles. So,
Right.
Yeah.
And what was
Carmen's a hero.
She is. Thank you, Carmen, for housing the last 16 of the Hellophorus beetles, which are, of course, going extinct. And, Wikipedia is not wrong. I mean, when they say that they're to be found in Northern Europe, Asia, and Alaska, I mean, Carmen Sandiego has been in all of those places. I mean, where in the world is she now? We don't know.
Exactly.
But,
she hasn't been found in any of those places, but she's definitely gone through those places.
Right. So Wikipedia, I know you're listening to this also you're getting updates from Chris Thiele, who of course is the only audience member.
Right.
But
thank you, Chris. You're a hero.
Thank you. Pass this on to Wikipedia that we respect their answer and we just say it's not wrong. It's just not the whole truth, and maybe submit that for editing.
Well, do you have any more questions for me?
Of course, yeah. What is the average weight of a colossal squid?
Oh. It's gotta be at least 1,000 parsecs, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure about this one.
Well, maybe you could do another example, like how many human babies is it?
Well, if 700 parsecs is 7 human babies, then it would stand to reason that 10 human babies
would be 1,000 parsecs.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that really helps me wrap my brain around it, and so thank you for that. My last biology question for you is, what is your favorite food?
Oh, I think it's gotta be...
Wait, hang on. You're taking way too long to answer this. You knew what the family classification of a black-footed ferret was. What is your favorite food?
Black-footed ferrets, I think.
You often dine on them with your local orangutan.
Oh yeah, I'll eat them like 12 parsecs at a time, just going for it.
Just down in parsec after another of black-footed ferrets. Damn.
Exactly.
You're hardcore over there.
I know.
Yeah, you have to throw them out the door of your recording booth to keep the orangutans at bay.
It's the only revenge that I can take upon the triumvirate and all the horrorous crimes they've committed upon this world.
And Hellophorus beetles, specifically.
Yes, exactly. Thanks again, Carmen. So, did I pass?
Yes, you did great. You answered a certain number of the questions correct out of however many that I told you.
Did I?
And I think that's enough to qualify you as an animal kingdom expert now. So hopefully you can incorporate some of this information in your next D&D campaigns. And I hope some of the people out there learned something useful from our pointless conjecture today.
Yeah, I'm for sure. So yeah, that's been the news from Lalaland, where everything is a toy if you play with it.
And no coffin goes unfilled.
The theme music for this podcast was written and recorded by Nick and Sarah Sokol. And the music you are hearing right now was performed by the band Nuage on their album Neuf, available now on iTunes and Spotify. News from Lalaland is a production of Voice of Sokol. to learn more about Voice of Sokol and the rest of Sarah's creative content and services. Visit voiceofsokol.com. Thanks so much for listening, and please drop us a line at voiceofsokol@gmail.com. We would love to hear your feedback.